Hello children, how are you all? I hope you all are here and hearty, you all are fit and fine. My name is Tanya Sharma and I welcome you all to the PW Gulf in the Succeed Ultimate Recap batch. Let's get started with the beautiful chapter of history that is Forest, Society and Colonialism, and let's have a very crisp and very easy discussion of this chapter. Let's get started without wasting any time. Alright, so in this chapter basically you're talking about the forest society and how colonialism came into being and how colonialism exploited the people of India and the other states. Let's see what happened. So almost everything available in the forest, we all know forest provides us with a lot of things. So we find everything available in the forest, like leaves can be stitched together to make disposable plates and cups. Then we have CRD, that is creeper can be used. So we have a lot of things from forest and from trees which we can use in our daily lives, okay, to make ropes. The thorny bark of the semu, that is silk cotton trees, to grate vegetables. Oil is used for cooking, and to light lamps can be pressed from the fruit of mahua tree. So which from this particular paragraph we understand that forests are very much valuable for us, and definitely they are obviously of a lot of value and creates a lot of things for us. So the comprehensive cutting down of forests is referred to as deforestation, but in this chapter definitely we are referring to deforestation, and deforestation is not a recent phenomenon. So when I ask you deforestation, so you must be knowing that deforestation means cutting down of trees in a very reckless manner, okay, but this deforestation was not a recent phenomenon. It happened during the colonial rule when Britishers, or we can say when India was a colony of British. So, process of deforestation under colonial rule had become systematic and extensive. Okay, so they used to call this deforestation very systematic manner, or they used to call it in a very extensive manner. So between 1700 to 1905, the period of industrialization also happened, whereby a lot of industries rose. So 3.9 million square kilometer of forest, or 9.3% of the world's total area, was cleared because they wanted a lot of trees, especially timber, and Britishers wanted a lot of trees because they wanted back then in England for their royal ships and for the Royal Navy. So again, this was the reason of recklessly cutting and clearing down of the forest in the colonial, or in the colonial period, or we can say in the colonies. So we see this causes of scale deforestation during the colonial rule was expansion of cultivation of food grains. They wanted to expansion of the cultivation of food grains. Then making way for tea, coffee, plant and rubber plantations. For imperial shipbuilding, whereby in England a lot of people wanted, a lot of wood, that is specifically timber, and also wood from the oak tree, so that it supports the shipbuilding. Spread of railways also happened, and to enhance the state revenue by converting forest land into agricultural land. So Britishers believed that forest area is wasteland, and definitely forest cannot yield us a lot of profit. How the forest area will lead us profit? Because when we'll clear the area and we do agriculture, that is systematic and extensive agriculture, so it will reap us profit. So this mindset, this manipulative thought was given to all Indians, and especially to the colonies where the Britishers were ruling, and because of this a lot of areas of the forest were cleared, and this was the main cause, and these are the main causes of why deforestation happened recklessly. Next, what happened? The British were worried that the use of forests by local people and reckless felling of trees by traders would destroy forests. So they decided to invite a German, to invite a German expert called Dietrich Brandes. So Dietrich Brandes was a very German expert, and actually he did nothing. He also introduced a systematic way, but ultimately they were all clearing the forest. So this was an irony for advice, and made him the first Inspector General of the forest in India. So Brandes realized that proper systematic system has to be introduced to manage the forest, and the people had to be trained the signs of conservation. So basically they did not we can say conserve the forest, they actually divided the forest and actually made use of the products which actually Britishers wanted. So again, it was a play for the people of India. Next, Brandes set up the Indian Forest Services. They set up the Indian Forest Service in 1864, and he helped in formulating the first Indian Forest Act of 1865. Again, this was amended. Let's see what happened next. After the Forest Act was enacted in 1865, it was amended twice. That is the thing I was telling you. In once in 1878 and second in 1927, which means a lot of things were amending. They were having a lot of changes in the forest. And now, because it was amended, the 1878 Act divided forest into 3 types. Now, basically, they're actually taking a lot of, so Britishers wanted a lot of raw material, and that raw material was exported from India to their countries, to their areas, so that they can utilize that raw material, specifically the woods, specifically the timber wood, extraction of the timber wood from the trees. So in that case, they actually wanted only timber. So they realized that they actually wanted to, divide the forest into 3 parts, that is reserved, protected and village forest. In that case, whatever extraction was done was taken back to the England. Then the best forests were known as reserved forests. Now reserved forests are those forests which are reserved for the purposes only for the British rule, because only they said that timber wood, the only raw material which they wanted was timber. So basically they kept these forests as the reserved forest, and Detrius Brandes actually said this forestry is known as scientific forestry, whereby they are just systematically clearing all the forest and growing one type of crop, that was timber, that was timber tree. So basically they only wanted raw material, so they were only growing that particular crop there, like Britishers. Villagers could not take anything from these forests known as the reserve forests, even for their own use. For the house building or fuel, they could take wood from protected and village forests. So 3 forests reserved, that was only reserved for the Britishers. Protected, it was kind of these forests were only lands, they were protected so that they will not get, deforestation should not happen in these areas. And village forest, whereby whatever villagers wanted from these particular villages, they can only see from those villages, right? And because of this, the Imperial Forest Research Institution was set up in Dehradun, that is in India, in 1906. The system they taught here was called scientific forestry. So scientific forestry is nothing but just growing one type of crop or one type of tree throughout the area, so that this particular area and this particular trees can actually, should reap benefit to the people, not to the Indians, but to the colonial people, that is colonial rulers, that is by which we mean Britishers. In scientific forestry, now hereby we have to learn this, natural forest with lots of different types of trees were cut down. So naturally what they are doing, whatever natural forests were there, they were all cut down. Then what was happening? In their place, one type of tree was planted in straight rows. This is called plantation. Okay, so this was called system, this was called systematic plantation. Scientific forestry, only one type of crop was grown, and that one type of crop was actually beneficial for the Britishers. Shifting cultivation or Sweden agriculture. Now this particular agriculture, they said that it is not a good thing, because Britishers could not impose taxes on the people who are doing shifting cultivation, because they're moving from one place to another, because they're shifting from one place to another, right? So they gave a very, this is also known as slash and burn agriculture in some parts of India. So they gave a very, very tricky manner, they gave this reason that because, fire, it will catch forest fires, it will catch, it is very harmful for the soil, so we should not burn the area, because actually the ultimate motive was that Britishers could not impose taxes on these people who are moving from one place to another. Right, this was the main agenda. They did not want people to practice this, so they banned this practice. Let's see. So in scientific forestry, natural forests which had a lot of different type of trees were cut down, as we have seen here. In their place, one type of tree was planted in the straight rows. This is called plantation. I think this is the similar line they have printed. Shifting cultivation or Sweden cultivation, again we are doing here. So now these are the different names of shifting cultivation. In Southeast Asia, it is called lading. Central Asia, milpa. Africa, chentmin or tavi. Sri Lanka, china. In India, dahiya, penda, jewar, neva, jhum, podu, kankhad and khumri. So now impact of forest laws. As I told you, forest laws were made against all these things. So these are the impacts of forest laws, and people were actually unhappy. The villagers were actually unhappy with these laws. And when shifting cultivation was banned, people were also sad about it. So they were forced to work instead in the factory. So they are villagers. So villagers were forced to work in the factories, mines, plantation under the government supervision, by which they mean that obviously these people were not, they did not know how to do and what work to do. So basically they were working in the, factories, mines, plantation and government provisions. But what was the ultimate reality? They only know how to do the plantation, but they did not work under the control. Now they were told to work under the control of people, which is again very sad. Second, many pastoralist and nomadic communities like Korawa, Karacha, Yerukula and the Madras Presidency, they lost their livelihoods because they began to be known as criminal tribes. Now why they were known as criminal tribes? Because actually they were tribes. Okay, they were very close to the villagers. They were known as tribes. And when you impose tax on and you impose a lot of you restrict the area of your house, that is their niche, that is their house, that is their area. And when Britishers enter someone's area and anyone is entering your area, definitely your comfort zone, you will feel very sad. So nomadic people, actually they were known by their area, right? And Britishers actually took all the areas, took all the forests. So thereby actually this was the practice that they were started stealing things, because obviously they wanted food, obviously they were hunters, they were gatherers, they used to do all these things. So because they do all these things, they were known as criminal tribes, right? Third, people were now forced to steal wood from forest. If they caught, they were at the mercy of the forest guards who would take bribe from them. A lot of people had to, all the tribes had to, steal things, because they were not allowed to do all these things. They were not allowed to take fruit. They were not allowed to take the fodder, anything from the forest. But now it was high time and people started stealing. That is why they were known as criminal tribes. Then women collected fuel wood, especially worried for their safety, and women were not feeling safe. Women were actually not feeling safe when they were used to go alone, because there were a lot of men, a lot of guards there. It was also common for police constables and forest guard to harass people and demanding free food from them. People were exploited, people were harassed. So all these things started with the colonial period. And then after the implementation of the act, almost everyday practice of native became illegal, like cutting of wood, houses, hunting, fishing, grazing, cattle, collective honey, collecting fruits, roots, collection of the mahua, everything was regarded as illegal. So people actually, were very sad. They did not know what to do, and everything was very sad. It was going way beyond their imagination. So people now started revolting. Now they were being very rebellious. Let's see next. Okay, so in shifting cultivation, as I told you, parts of the forest are cut and burnt in rotation. Okay, cut and burnt in rotation. Then seeds are sown in the ashes after the first monsoon rain and crop harvested in the October-November. So what is slash and burn agriculture? Whereby the shifting of the cultivation happens. So hereby people are shifting from one place to another, and when people are shifting from one place to another, what are they doing? Basically they are doing cultivation. Okay, after 2 to 3 years, they burn that particular area whereby they have done cultivation, so that the soil can renew once again, the soil can get fertile once again. So they move to the next area. So again for 2 to 3 years they are again doing cultivation, and after that they burn that area and they move to another area. So this is how cultivation happens in the shifting cultivation. So such plots are cultivated for a couple of years and then left fallow for 12 to 18 years for the forest to grow back. A mixture of crop is grown on these plots, While the forest or deprived people of their customary rights to hunt, hunting of big animals became a sport. Now hereby again the irony starts, whereby, as I told you, the villagers were not allowed to do a lot of things. Villagers were not allowed to enter the forest. Villagers were not allowed to take fruit and anything from the forest or any forest produce. But on the other hand, and they were deprived of hunting as well, because some of people were hunters and gatherers. But on the other hand, for the queens and for the royal people and for the kings, this was a sport, like hunting was a sport. So that was an irony that they were telling, the Britishers were telling that this is not for you, but they were doing the same thing again. They were saying this, they were doing the same thing by themselves. So, the British saw large animals as signs of wild and primitive and savage society. They believed that by killing dangerous animals, the British would civilize India. So, basically, this was a reason they used to give. This reason was obviously a very tricky and a very manipulative reason. So, people used to question, like, you are yourself telling us not to hunt, but you yourself are hunting. Why? So, again, they say that because we are protecting you from the wild beasts, because we are protecting you. But again, this was a very tricky, reason. So, over 80,000, because now they were killing into numbers most of India's species, specifically in the animal, they were extinct. So, 80,000 tigers, 150,000 leopards, 2 lakh wolves were killed to reward the practice in 1875 and 1925. A British administrator, George Yule, killed 400 tigers. Initially, certain areas of forest were reserved for hunting. So, this is done by a lot of Britishers, and the main person here was George Yule, very important and very famous person. Alright, so from the medieval period onwards, we have records of Adivasis community trading. Adivasis are the tribal community. These are the tribal people. Okay, so in the elephants, hides and horns, silk cocoons, ivories, spices, gums and raisins, then we have fibers, bamboos, then we have, now see what happened in these areas. So, a lot of people were actually doing trade of this, but when Britishers saw that, oh my god, now they have started trading, so we need to stop them, and this trading will be done by the companies which are from, obviously not India, from the outer India, that is international. So, a lot of Britishers gave rights to the people from the outer world, or we can say from the outer boundaries, specifically the England. A lot of people came from England and they started trading. So, all the rights of the trading of all these things were given later to the England companies from the England. Okay. Companies of the England. This is how it proceeds. Now, we are doing 2 case studies, one of Bastar, the same thing we study of Bastar, and the other we study of Java. Let's see. Okay, so Bastar is located in the southernmost part of Chhattisgarh. Now, Chhattisgarh is basically we can say a state in India, and Bastar is just a village. So, it borders Andhra Pradesh and Maharashtra and Orissa. A number of different communities live in Bastar. A lot of people live in different types of, we can say, tribal communities: Maurya, Murya, Gonds, Dhurwas, Bhatras and Halbas. These are the people, these are the different communities, and though they are different communities, but they have same culture. Though they speak different language, but they have same culture. So, they speak different languages, but share common custom and beliefs. Now, some villages, as I told you, same thing, whatever was happening in all over the villages colonial period, same was happening in Bastar also, but in Bastar people started revolting. So, some villages were allowed to stay on in reserve forest on the condition that they worked for free department in cutting, transporting trees from fires. These villages were called forest villages or 1 gram. Now, some people were given bribe that whenever you will, some people were given bribe, like if you want to stay in the forest, you want to stay nearby the forest which is nearby village, so you have to do work for us, you have to be under our control. So, some of the people actually, because they had no chance, they had no option, so they actually believed here and they started working with them. Then, their initiative of revolt in Bastar region was taken by Dhurwas. So, now a lot of people were starting revolting, they were very rebellious. So, Dhurwas was one community which started the revolt and which actually started the rebel. Next, Kangar forest, one reservation was implemented of Kangar forest. So, Dhurwas were of Kangar forest and their reservation was implemented. One of the important figures of this revolt was Gundadur. So, Gundadur was an important person, and this person actually initiated all the kinds of, the bearings of what they have to do, and this was again a very important figure in terms of the rebel. Okay, and it was a victory here whereby the colonial period people could not capture Gundadur. Okay, so though revolt was suppressed in major victory for rebel, work on reservation was suspended temporarily. So temporarily they, the reservation, they temporarily reserved it. The colonial period, the colonial rulers, the area to be reserved were reduced half to the plan before. Again, it was kind of a major victory, and they were also, they could not, okay, also they colonial rulers were not able to capture Gundadhur. All right. Next, again the same thing happened in Java, but here we do not find British people, we find Dutch people. Same patterns, everything the same they have followed. So, but Java is now famous as rice producing island in Indonesia. Now Java obviously is in Indonesia and it is famous for rice producing. Okay, earlier. Okay, but sorry, this time, present time. But once upon a time, it was covered mostly with forest, and the same thing like India was covered with forest. So again, Java was also covered with a lot of forest. Now let's see what happened. The Kalangs of Java. Now here this community Kalangs of Java, they were actually a community of skilled forest cutters. They know how to cut they know how to cut the wood. So they were skilled forest cutters, and they were also doing shifting cultivation. Similar patterns which we have seen in Bastar. Okay, the Dutch first imposed. Now here the colonial, here the colonial rulers were Dutch. So the Dutch first imposed rents. They imposed rents on them. Okay, on land being cultivated in the forest, and then they exempted some of the villages. Second point, they exempted some of the villages because they wanted labor as well. So they exempted some of the people so that they can work under them. Okay, they have to pay them work collectively to provide the free labor and buffaloes for cutting the transporting timber. So this is also known as Bland Dong Den system. So again, this is a system. Okay, and this system basically was actually, which meant that Blang Dong, how we are pronouncing it is a Blang Dong Den system. So with this system, actually they are keeping a lot of people with them, and these people will have the access to the forest. Why? Because they are under the Dutch people and they are working for the Dutch people, and they are actually taking a lot of services for the Dutch people. Next we have, after they enacted forest law, again forest laws were enacted. Forest laws were enacted in the Java by Dutch people. Okay, for the Dutch people. Then let's see what happened. Okay, restricting villagers' access to wood. Again, same thing. They restricted villagers. Wood could only be cut for specific purposes like making river boats, constructing houses, and only for specific forest under this close supervision. Now, why this? Because again, Dutch people wanted these things for themselves only. Right, not for the people but for themselves. So this was again the idea behind the specific purposes, taking things for the specific purposes. So villagers who were punished for grazing cattle, again same pattern what are followed in Bastar and in India. In young stands, transporting wood without a permit, or traveling on forest of a house or cattle. Now basically if the people used to do all these things, everyone was punished. They were punished. They were punished by guards. They were punished by a lot of people. Okay, the guards and the people of the colonial period. Then the Samins protested this advancement of Dutch. So Samin were the people who actually put forward this kind of, we can say, exploitation, this kind of harassment. Now they were the people who actually led. So Surantiko Samin was a person who argued that now he said that state had not created wind, water, earth, wood, so it could not own and ask for taxes. Now he says that he had a very valid point. The wind, the air, the sky, the natural products are not created by the Dutch people. They are not created by the colonial rulers. But how can they impose taxes on us? We are here. We are given this land by Mother Earth, or by the, we are the protectors of all these things. But we can also not exploit them. Nobody can control all these things. So this was a very great valid point given by Surantiko Samin. They protested by, now how they protested? Lying down on the very simple and very natural procedures. They protested lying down on the land when Dutch came to survey it. Others refused to pay. They did not pay taxes and fines. They also refused to perform labor duties, okay, free labor. So all these were the very simple and very natural way they actually, we can say, they rebelled. So in Java, just before the Japanese, or before Japanese, because now Dutch has, taken a lot of resources, a lot of raw materials and a lot of things from Java. Right now it was a time whereby invasions, World War II happened and Japan was in the move. So Japanese occupied this region. So basically before Japanese occupied this region, the Dutch followed a scorched earth policy. Now with the scorched earth policy, they actually burned the entire forest area of the Java. So the entire Java was under the ashes, whereby the entire forest, because it was covered with forest, all the forest, the all natural resources were again, the trees, the wood, everything was scorched, everything was burned. So destroying sawmills, burning huge piles of giant teak logs so that they would not fall into the Japanese hands. The Japanese then exploited the forest recklessly. They also exploited the forest recklessly for their own war industries, forcing, again, Java was again under the Japanese also. They were very exploited to cut down the forest. Now in India, from Mizoram to Kerala, dense forests have survived only because of villagers protected them, okay, in sacred groves known as Sarnas, Devakodu, Kan, Rai, etc. So because some of the forests in in Java and in India, they only were able to survive because of the rebellious movement, because of the revolt done by the village people. They were done by the forest people. Then only they are survived till now. Otherwise, everything was under the British control, everything was under the Dutch and the colonial period control. So this is how things actually sustained, and this is how we are doing the ending of the chapter. This is how we understand forest colonialism. Okay, we have understood the forest society, how forest society and colonialism went hand in hand, and how because of some forest people who actually rebelled at that time, because of them we have still our natural resources present. So thanks to all of them. And yes, colonialism definitely created a very bad impact on the forest and specifically to the deforestation. Alright children, bye-bye. See you in the next lecture. I hope you understood it really well. If you have any questions or any queries, you can write in the comment section. Alright, bye-bye children. See you next time.